Steve Harker set to go on a single run all by himself. Kirk Williams, we talked about him in our highlights yesterday. Didn't see much of an explosion in that blue car, but there was one, trust me.
They detonated that. I went over and talked to the family at the end of the day. They were very impressive this weekend. They ran their career best numbers, but they said they have an extra motor, but they left it home because they didn't want to be tempted if they blew something up to put another engine in before they decided what the problem was. We're going to see them later on this season at Brainerd. Steve Harker told me he's going to run for lane choice. He's going to make an all-out run. He's taken a different approach to driving his car the last couple of races with the RPMs on the starting line, and he runs a little wicker on the back of that race car to help keep it planted. That's why his speed isn't quite what we see from some of the others, but a very good race car. Nice to get a freebie here in this round on this track.
He needs to get after it, too. He races the winner of the Tony Bartone-Roger Bateman matchup. Bartone's already been 564 in elimination. Bartone's already won twice this year. This is the only other winner on the tour this year.
Very aggressive off the starting line.
Very aggressive at the finish line, too. 562.5, 255 miles an hour. That is low elapsed time of the weekend.
Spectacular run for the guy to the #1 qualifying spot. Just an excellent run. Qualified at 563, ran a 565 in the opener, and that's a nice way to take that by run. And he said he was going to run it out and go for lane choice. And Bartone and Bateman are going to really have to hustle if they want to pick their lanes in the semifinals. Steve Harker right now is just an excellent race car, and he was running about 203 there, but 958 at 60 foot. That's a pretty good indication he's on his way to a good number. Let me tell you, say 203 there. That's at the 8th mile. He has run 210 miles an hour at the 8th mile, so that's how aggressive he can be at times for that race car.
Watch the split screen there. One of the daughters and the crew guy. You say, oh, it fished around a little bit there, but when they see that number pop up, they're going to be plenty happy about that. You betcha. Put your hands together. You're in the semifinals with low elapsed time of the weekend.
Hey, I understand that you just went 562 low ET. Got to watch the pass. Beautiful pass, single run. What happened that, you know, sometimes it throws drivers off when they're in a single lane, but you went all out?
Yeah, well, we just wanted to make sure we always race the racetrack, and we just make sure you get it down there and have some good data for the next round, you know. So Lucas Oil, Hedman Headers, I-40 Inc., my crew, wife Janelle, the girls, Diane and Joseph, they all do a fantastic job turning this car around, and that's what makes it consistent. So we're just having a great weekend. That's a great way to start first round on Sunday with low ET, the race so far. So we knew the track would be good early, so we thought we'd go for it, you know, and see what it would hold, you know.
Beautiful pass. You'll face Bartone next session.
That'll be great. That'll be a good match. Thank you.
And the burnouts are now complete for our next pair. That's Tony Bartone in the black machine on the left side of your screen. Steve Harker, the #1 qualifier, a perennial points contender, over on the right.
This should be a very fun matchup. Tony Bartone, who is a former champ in the class and has made some of the best runs in the history of the class, coming back to it this year with Rip Jackson's team out of the Center Point Collision. Steve Harker and he have never met on the racetrack in a national event. Tony is as good as they come driving this. Like I said earlier, he's already won a couple of races, but had a couple of little glitches on the starting line. And Steve Harker right now running as well as anybody. He's got that 562 in the last round. He's been living in the 560s and knows that it's going to take that kind of performance again to beat the team over there in the other lane.
Meanwhile, that is Steve Harker, who said he was going to run it on mean in that single, try to make sure he had lane choice. He earned that by 0.03 of a second, and he now knows he can go as quick as 562. Really, things haven't changed that much out on the racetrack. The ambient air temperature is in the mid-80s. Track's about 120 degrees, so things are virtually identical to what they were in round number 2. A shot to go to the finals here at Heartland Park on the line. Steve Harker on the left, Tony Bartone on the right.
And big points implications, because the winner here could put another W on the board. Oh, look at this.
Steve Harker drives away from Tony Bartone. An obvious problem for the Steve Bogstoon Rick Jackson machine. They only run 6 flat. Harker with another solid pass, 568. It's going to be good enough to give him lane choice in the final coming up against O'Bannon.
Just barely, but that's all you have to do it by, and he will go to the final round for the 3rd consecutive year here at this racetrack and puts another notch into his belt. The single most improved race car in this class over the last couple of seasons. Runs very well, flawless, runs a completely different setup setup than the rest of the guys in this class do, with the way the engine is set up, the way that he revs it. Wife Janelle and the kids going down to pick him up at the end of the racetrack. It's Harker and O'Bannon for the money here at Topeka.
And here are the particulars for those of you keeping tabs at home. 568.1 for Harker, 569 for O'Bannon. That means Harker will have the lane choice coming up in the Top Alcohol Funny Car Final.
Steve Harker, this is your third time going to a finals here in Topeka. What are you going to do, you think, to pull off the win?
Well, just try and keep what we're doing going down the track. You know, it's a little tricky, but we got it down there, so that's the main thing for Lucas Oil, Hedman Headers, and I-40 Inc. and the crew. You know, we're just having a good time, and 3 years in a row to a final here, that's fantastic.
That's what we think.
This place, yeah, it's great.
Great, fantastic.
You got to think that 562 maybe kind of found the edge of that tuning curve, and he could pull it back a little bit and know he could run a mid-560 and be all right.
Two guys that know this racetrack very well will square off in that final in the funny car category.
There's Sean O'Bannon right at you and under you. Other side of the lane is going to be Steve Harker.
Steve Harker is a Jags All-Star. Sean O'Bannon's a Jags All-Star. Sean is not going out to the race. They got some business commitments and things they have to do back home, so wait and see who represents that division when we get to Chicago.
Beautiful blue skies, and it did finally crack the low 90s, 93 degrees out there. You wouldn't know it, though, because the water grains, a.k.a. the humidity, kind of has come down a little bit. It's actually very comfortable out there. Track temperature, though, still blazing at 126, and you can see that density altitude has climbed about 800 feet to over 4,100.
Comfortable out there. You been in those aluminum grandstands?
I have not. Maybe that's the benefit, right?
Do that and get back to me there, Sparky. Sean O'Bannon with a great route to the final round. He's beaten very solid cars. Clint Thompson, Jay Payne, and then that Foster team that had a career best weekend here. Forest River Gang, and they have got to take on Steve Harker. And as I've mentioned several times, Frank Manzo's the best in the class right now. Steve Harker, you see the number 2 on the side of the race car. He finished behind Frank last year. He's had a very good start to the season. We mentioned at the start of the show that the driver that wins this in the alcohol funny car, if they're running for the points, is a very big, pivotal race. I'm not saying it's a must-win for the guy that finished second last year, but it's close to it.
Keep in mind, Sean O'Bannon has never won in the alcohol funny car class. His dad, Jack O'Bannon, is here. No doubt pulling for his son.
You think?
Yes.
She's pulling for her dad.
Weird. Great race, but it's going to be too much of Steve Harker's. Kate and Diane, the entire crew, go wild. 565, 253. Sean O'Bannon slows a bit in the final. It's 572.
That's pretty impressive stuff for Steve Harker. He was the best race car here this weekend. Jay Payne made that monster run when he lost on the red light start. Out of the starting gate, Sean O'Bannon a little bit better. Down about half track, Steve Harker had picked him up, and he runs him down. 3 national event final rounds, 2 wins for the season. That guy's going to give Frank a run for the money for the championship.
And as we mentioned, Harker has that number 2 on the side of his car. That means he finished number 2 in the world a year ago.